and hello to our international attendees from Canada. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Outstanding. Thanks so much, Dustin. So to get us started, we'll just do a little quick introduction. My name is Chris Baumgart. I am Assistive Technology Specialist for Imagine. And Imagine is a community-centered board that provides services for people with intellectual and cognitive disabilities in Boulder and Broomfield counties of Colorado.
And I'm Megan Little. I work for the Day Hab at our services. We have 2 locations that I support. And I'm the Assistive Technology Program Supervisor. So, and we will get into our presentation. We will probably stop our video just so you can see our PowerPoint instead.
We promise we still look the same.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. You wanna open us up?
Sure. So we have a partnership with Reality Garage, and we are working on how to create job training through virtual reality. So we'll go into that. Chris is going to kind of start the first part of it of like what virtual reality is and kind of where we see our future going with it.
One thing that we've definitely noticed is we're often talking to a very large and very diverse group of people when we were talking about the projects that we're working on with virtual reality, as well as, vocational skill building and things like that. So I always want to make sure that I start with the very introductory 101, some important things that you should know about virtual reality. One of the things that we're employing currently is we're working with the Oculus Quest is the brand and type of VR headset that we're using. And the reason that I bring that up is it is the first wireless headset that allows 6 degrees of freedom. The 6 degrees of freedom is really important. This means that you essentially have the ability to move in 3 dimensions, but you can also actually walk around. And there are cameras and lenses that are actually built into the headset that track your movement in real time without the need for setting up all kinds of sensors and cameras and having to block out an area. So it's something that's really convenient for us to use. It's also really convenient for the individuals that we serve to use as end users. So something that we want to talk about a little bit, you'll see that we're using controllers that are paired with the headset. And I'm already going to say one of the major hiccups that we've discovered working with virtual reality controllers is for people who have fine and gross motor skill challenges. That can be really problematic simply because the requirements of having to press the buttons or manipulate very small buttons can be really challenging. So Oculus just announced that in 2020, they're going to be releasing a pilot program that basically uses your hands as the controllers. We have no idea the specifics of what that's going to look like yet, but we're watching that very closely because we think that's going to be a really exciting thing in the future. Okay, so the company that we partnered with, Virtual Reality Reality Garage, they're part of a larger community, and that's the community of Virtual Reality for Good. They are dedicated to making virtual reality experiences that are more meaningful than just your generic first-person shooters, bang, bang, smash, smash, etc. And I always like to call special attention to that because I think that it's important to recognize that anytime a community is using a tool to make the lives of people better is always worth addressing. So now I want to get into a little bit of specifics around our experience that we've built. One of the great advantages of using a virtual reality experience as a teaching tool is you get this fully interactive experience as opposed to a generic linear experience. And what I mean by that is before virtual reality, historically, what we've been doing is we have been using, we'll take an iPad or a tablet that has a series of picture or video prompts to walk somebody through the specific steps to complete a task. The challenge with that is there's nothing that really says that an individual can't just tap, 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 tap through all of the videos. Great, I learned the skill, all done. Whereas with this interactive experience, we actually give people the opportunity to demonstrate that skill building in real time. Just another final note on the controller piece. When we first started partnering with Reality Garage, they had shown us a couple of experiences that they had built that actually had visual hotspots in the experience. So imagine you're on a safari, for example, and you are done checking out all of the elephants. You want to move to the giraffes or the rhinoceri. You could actually look at a spot on the screen and it would navigate you to that new step in the experience. Now, they actually did that as a cheat for their programmers to make things easier. What ended up happening was the accidental bonus of creating a more accessible virtual reality experience. And from there, I'd actually like to take a moment to turn this over to Megan.
Cool. So we're going to talk about the partnership between Reality Garage and Imagine. One of the individuals we support, her sister wanted her to experience walking on a beach. She's an individual in a wheelchair, and so they contacted Reality Garage and they went to one of our smart homes to support the individuals there. And they kind of fell in love with Imagine, and you can see in some of these videos that, you know, some of these guys really enjoyed experiencing, you know, a different reality and doing something that they wouldn't actually get to do in real life. And so from there, we went into our day hab program, and we didn't actually know that Reality Garage had already kind of introduced themselves to Imagine. And so when we reached out to talk about doing a class with them, you know, we kind of like put that piece together of like, oh, we've already kind of integrated into the community together. And so in this class, we focus on how does an individual interact with the VR headset, and, you know, do they like it? How long do they wear the headset for? We have some individuals that started at, you know, 5 minutes and now are at 45 minutes, and they really enjoy it. We have some individuals that bike when they're there to work on exercise. One guy wants to learn how to drive, so he's learning that through VR. And this gave us an opportunity to talk more with Reality Garage and kind of discover their mission and ours, and that we really wanted to focus on how can we create better job training for individuals, and what does that look like. And so they did a great job working with us through this development. And as we talk through the presentation, we'll kind of talk about that more. And then, oh, hey, Dustin.
Hey, real quick question that came in.
Yeah.
Were there any other criteria, or how did you pick the partner, your AV VR partner, Reality Garage? Was there something besides just their background and their experience, and social?
So we kind of, when we started talking to them, we realized that their mission is they don't do any games or create any games that involve like shooting or anything like that. They're really trying to focus on like making experiences for individuals to be more beneficial. So they've talked about like, if you're like scared of something, like how you can support someone to come over that fear, or their mission is really to like focus on experiences that better someone's life. And so we really liked that. And so when we started going there, they're able to kind of connect with our guys too, and realize like there is potential for VR to have a more focus on supporting individuals to have a better life or get better training and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So then we just kind of want to talk about our relationship with Left Hand. We've been in a relationship with them our partnership with them for 15 years. We have individuals that go there and they package mountain mixers. And so you can see based on these pictures kind of what they do. They take beer and then they put it on a table, and then they have to package the mountain mixers. Something that happens a lot at this site is sometimes they'll mix in 4 beers instead of 3. And so at the end of the shift, they'll have to go through all of the beer and figure out which one was wrong and then repackage it back up. And so this has been a big barrier for us in terms of job training and supporting the individuals to do the job correctly. So through the VR, we're kind of seeing if this would help with job development and training, and we'll kind of go through what stuff we've implemented into our virtual reality to support individuals with job training better. So can we build a VR experience that will teach individuals to perform the job function at left hand? So now we'll kind of go into the experience, and Chris is going to talk about some airless learning. Oh, I lied.
You keep going.
I'm going to keep going. We're going to talk about the difference. So we have been doing training through iPad, and then we've been doing it through virtual reality. And so Chris kind of talked about this earlier. We are currently using a program called Go Talk Now, and it can play video clips for them so they can see each sequence of the job task. But the thing that happens is that they just press all the way through it and say they've like done the job task or have learned about it. And then when they actually go to do the job, they don't know how to do it because the iPad version is not supporting them to learn each step. In virtual reality, we can have a mirror image of what they're supposed to do. So you can see Chris here has a mirror of what the individual should be doing. So they can actually follow along with Chris as they do the task. So, if Chris is saying grab box 4, they can grab box 4 while Chris grabs box 4. So it's mirroring what they should do in the experience. And then we'll kind of go over more stuff. But we are seeing for certain individuals that virtual reality is better, but with other individuals, it may not be because of limitations and stuff like that. Or it may take longer for them to understand how the virtual reality works, because it can be a little intimidating if you've never experienced it before.
So Megan had talked about a couple of pros and a couple of cons about using a VR experience instead of some more traditional prompting systems that we've used in the past. Another important con, and there's not really a way around this, building a virtual reality experience costs more money. And that's something that we've had to be really mindful with. At the same time, this is the piece with errorless learning here. This is where we see a huge amount of potential. And I'm going to go back. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself there. So believe me when I tell you, I could spend an entire seminar, an entire presentation on just errorless learning, but I'm going to leave you with two very important tenets from Murray Sidman. This guy he's the errorless learning guru. The most important thing is that learning not be a trial and error process for the people. It may be for the teacher. It takes the onus of if you fail to learn a certain skill, that is not because you have failed as a student, but because I have failed to get creative in finding a way to teach this to you in a way that is accessible and approachable to you. So that's where we have that really big piece of shifting the responsibility for learning from the pupil to the teacher. And the proper study of learning becomes the study of teaching. So I know that can be a little bit high in the sky, so we're going to get into some specifics here. So what I'm going to talk about is providing a least to most level of support by using a very specific hierarchy of prompting. And so the challenge here, so this is a tried and true methodology that we've been using to teach skills for years and years and years and years and years and years. The novelty is trying to translate this in real time into a virtual reality environment. So if someone is able to complete a task independently, great, no prompting, really in the virtual environment, you just did it. Congratulations, nice job. And then we start looking at some environmental and positional prompting. Now in a classroom setting, a lot of times you won't see this used as often, but this would essentially be, if I put up a sign that says, employees must wash hands before returning to work, that is an environmental prompt. In this case, that also looks like these green arrows that you see that redirect you. So anytime someone performs the task incorrectly, rather than saying, oh, that's, you fail, we actually redirect them, and we'll follow this hierarchy of prompting from least to most support, so that an individual still receives the satisfaction of having successfully completed a job. Sorry, I keep accidentally switching slides. So they get the satisfaction of successfully completing a job. And I still recognize whether or not they need more support before they're actually ready to be on the job site doing the job for real. So after we have our environmental and positional prompting, we also have partial or full verbal prompting. So here you would have someone explaining what's next. And in this case, we actually, the modeling and pointing prompt here is replaced by a two-dimensional video window of me actually performing the task. And as Megan had mentioned, there's actually, it's a mirror image here, so that box 1 on the video correlates to box 1 of the virtual reality experience. Same for 2, 3, 4. And from there, the partial and physical prompting component doesn't really translate in a virtual reality environment. The next thing we did was we actually went to what would be in the real world, in meat space as it were, full physical prompting, which in this case we translate in the virtual experience as everything essentially grays out, except for the one object that you're supposed to interact with that is highlighted and is now the only object that's accessible to you. So at this point, if at each stage you still require that level of prompting, that's fine. You still finish the job, great work. But I know that more training is required before you're ready to actually step into the workstation. And so, having this idea, we talked to the wonderful, wonderful coders at Reality Garage, and something that's fun that came out of this, and this is just fun trivia for you digital nerds out there, is maybe the only virtual reality experience that contains both 2D and 3D 360 video, 2D flat video, that video window that you saw, as well as CG rendered elements. Because we felt like we needed a good pictographic representation of left hand. So we have 3D photos of the environment so that we basically set up a little, like a welcome video so that people can actually walk into the site before they're actually walking into the site. And then we get into the rendering of the interaction software. And you can see down here on the lower right what goes into actually generating the bottles. I have to say, just because it bears repeating, it's gorgeous. They did such an amazing job with this. And we'll show you a couple of quick videos here in just a moment that kind of give you a better sense of what that looks like. I'm sorry, and somebody has a question. Dustin?
Yes, there was a question that came in about how are you prepping the individual as far as putting the headset on and the lag time between it going on their head and the VR experience loading up, and what's that been like, I guess?
It's a great question with a long and complicated answer. This actually, I'm so glad that, I don't know who asked this, but whomever it was, wonderful question, because you have stumbled onto one of the other challenges of virtual reality, in that a lot of it is such a counterintuitive experience. And we've seen that once people get it, they really get it and really relate to it in a very meaningful way. But it can be challenging, and some people require more support just feeling comfortable with the idea of a headset on their face. So we give, in order to prepare people for this, we give them as much agency as possible. So I'll never just put a headset on someone else's head, right? What will typically happen is I'll explain the process that's happening beforehand. And this is even true when we're not talking about intellectual or cognitive disabilities. For example, when we were at the TEDx event, we had a lot of people coming through who were very brand new to virtual reality. And so we would explain what it would look like, and whatever they were able to physically do themselves, we would have them do. It makes people more comfortable, and they have that level of agency and control. And that's been a tremendous boon. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it did, and that there was kind of a follow up to that. And I'm assuming you start by the person sitting down and then work up to standing with a headset on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have that a Tuesday class that goes every week to Reality Garage, and they kind of was our starting point of just seeing if individuals are okay with the headsets, and explaining what it is and just getting to know the equipment, what it looks like, and everything. And so we kind of started there and have slowly been introducing it to other individuals. A lot of times we'll let them hold the controllers for a while to see it, and then don't put the headset on fully. So they can just kind of see it or mirror it onto something else, see what they may be looking at. So they have all those opportunities to experience stuff before placing it on their head if they're not comfortable with it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for these fantastic questions. So what I want to do here is I want to show you just a real brief video. So this was the very, very earliest stages of rendering. So we have the objects to take your boxes of models from point A to point B. And what we saw already from a very early stage was just having those visual cues set out had already set us up for a higher degree of success than we had initially anticipated. I just keep having to repeat myself. They did such an amazing job with the mechanics. One of the reasons, just as a quick side note, that we had chosen left hand specifically for this project, there were a couple of major factors, and one of them is obviously the longevity of the relationship that we have, but also there's very little time for on-the-job training on that site. I mean, there's work. It all had to be done immediately yesterday. So training can be really, really challenging. And finally, and this may seem like a small point, but at the time it felt really important, because we are required to use controllers because it's not yet 2020, we wanted a task that could be easily generalized between, say, grabbing a controller and grabbing an object in real space. In this case, these bottles seem to be a very good analog. The reason that I bring that up is we didn't think that using VR to train someone to roll silverware, for example, would be necessarily a good outlet there, because the fine motor skill required to manipulate a napkin and rolling around silverware may not be something that we can represent with VR experience, at least not yet. We'll see what 2020 holds for us. Oh, and Megan reminded me that I should also talk about this experience actually has two modes. One is the tutorial and one is the training or the practice mode. So the tutorial actually has a video that starts up from the beginning and walks you through each of the steps as you go through. And some exciting things came out of that. So the video will actually speed up if you get ahead of the video and you've already moved on to the next step. It will generate the video for the next step, or it will repeat if need be, if successful completion hasn't happened. And then in training mode, you actually can do that, the same steps, but you can do them starting from that complete level of independence and then escalating to higher levels of support if required. So a lot of thought went into this, and we definitely have run into some unanticipated hiccups, as anyone doing something that we have no frame of reference for will do. But we've also seen a lot of really exciting things come out of this. So here's a few more looks at the actual specifics of what things look like now. So I'll show you a little video here. And I've recorded so many of these videos now, I don't even remember which build this is from. I think this is Mark III. And so this is just illustrating a very important step, that something that we have run into frequently. We don't actually tape up the box before you move it onto the conveyor belt. That's the final step that's done by a machine. And so one of the major steps that people tend to overlook is trying to pick up the box and set it on the conveyor belt, which will undo all of your work and probably end up, you'll have some product loss. So a couple of other things. So in the event that you're unsuccessfully able to complete that process of turning, and then moving to the conveyor belt. This is where you get those environmental cues. Oh, and so this is a little special piece that had to be added in because the specifics of this job and the actual beers themselves. So one of those flavors, and you can barely see it in the picture, but on the far left side, the bottle caps, oh, it's better over here. The bottle caps are black because those are nitro beers. Turns out if you package those and ship them without this little divider, they explode. So we figured that would be an important piece to add in. So that's why you see us actually adding in the divider before sending it off on its merry way. And then the last piece that we wanted to talk to you a little bit about was the data collection. And this is always the biggest challenge. And I'm going to leave Megan to talk about this because this has been her bailiwick.
Yeah, so for the data collection piece, we thought a lot about it and like, how could we accurately collect data with individuals? So we kind of broke it down based on the steps for each one and how it relates into real life and how it relates versus the iPad and virtual reality. So in our training or in our data collection, we have it split between, we're collecting the same data for the iPad version versus the virtual reality version. And we base it off of these skills right here. And then it will generate a score for each box. And this will help us determine where they're having the troubles at. And then in the VR experience, we can also focus on those. So seeing what prompts they actually need and collecting that data. And then when they do it in real time to see if they're improving on their skills or if, you know, we still need to work on, you know, box 2. Like box 2 is where we're struggling the most. So then that's where we're going to focus on. And we're trying to collect it. So we have, you know, graphs and everything to demonstrate if this is being successful or not for our individuals, compared to if we're using the iPad version, if that's more successful or not. So we're really trying to collect the best data we can to demonstrate that virtual reality could be a very good equipment for us to use for training for certain job tasks or certain individuals that might kind of do better in that piece. Anything else?
Oh, that was great. Which kind of leaves us with what's next. And so it should be noted, we're in very early stages. We already feel like we have seen a lot of potential, but at the same time, it's also important to recognize that, you know, we have a very small control group that we're working with right now. Our sample size for our control group, we have 8 people in the study because it is a very specific task that we've built or very specific experience that we've built. So looking to generalize this in the future is definitely going to be one of the things we're going to continue to work on tackling because you know, it costs money to generate these experiences. And it's important to find a balance between the specificity of an environment to help maximize generalization, but also have enough generalizability with the experience so that it can apply to multiple contexts. Wow, that sounded like I need to unpack that. I'll come back to that. If you need me to unpack it, I will. But at the same time, this is also a really exciting time because, you know, so Facebook has purchased Oculus and they're really doing this huge push, and their virtual reality has been around in some facet or another for 50 years. I learned at the Coleman conference when a gentleman actually co-presented with us, and that was really exciting. But the equipment has always been prohibitively expensive and very difficult to acquire and not very ubiquitous. And now, because so many people are using these VR headsets, so there's, you know, you've got the Oculus, you've got the HTC Vive, you've got the $5 headsets that you can buy at the dollar store where you can actually plug your phone into them and have, you know, potentially low quality but easily accessible experiences. So to some degree or another, so many people are using these that the cost is no longer nearly as challenging as it used to be. I mean, the low-end Oculus Go, it's a completely wireless headset for $200. The Oculus Quest, that is the headset that we're using, runs for a whopping $600. And this is down from the thousands and thousands of dollars for a wired rig just 2 years ago. So this is really exciting. But we don't have to limit this to just virtual reality. Excuse me. Augmented reality and smart glasses is another really exciting thing. There's a possibility that we can look at in the very not distant future, actually having smart glass experiences where instead of having the virtual objects rendered, you can have them highlighted in real time. So you can actually skip that final step of generalizing from virtual into real space. Obviously, we haven't even tried to start tackling that yet, but it's something that it's important to think about because the pace of this technology is moving so quickly, it's hard to try to stay on top of it. And now between all the amazing steps that we're making in machine learning and artificial intelligence, I mean, we can start building really, really meaningful and powerful tools for very cheaply. And now I feel like, I could just keep going on that for days, or we can leave that some Q&A to see if anyone else has any ideas.
Yeah, there actually have been several questions that were coming in. I was just so interested in what you were saying. I was trying to hold off as long as possible. One of the questions that has come in that I actually had written down that I wanted to ask is how much time did this project take for you guys from concept to actually implementation, and what did it cost?
Yeah, those are all great questions.
And they're frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
Do you want to
imagine? So we can
okay.
it. So when we sat down with Reality Garage, we kind of threw out our ideas, and they kind of were like, yeah, we could try to do that. And honestly, we were just like, is this really possible? So when we sat down with them, we really wanted to focus on errorless learning. And so that was a big piece for us. And so we sat down with them several times. So this has been 6 months.
To be fair, the errorless learning and the power of that and building that into the VR experience actually didn't occur to us until a month in. We were actually presenting this to a team, and I had, I'm going to say, the most belated, overdue aha moment of my entire professional career, because as soon as we had that moment, we were like, this can be an entire game changer. Yeah. So it took a little bit longer than it should have, because we just didn't recognize in the beginning the power of what we had at our fingertips.
Yeah. And then once we sat down with them and kind of laid it all out, we were able to give them what we needed in terms of supporting our individuals, and they were able to do the coding aspect of it. So it worked really well. And Reality Garage is they're so great about listening to what we have to say and trying to put it into the experience. And so really we provided them with the ideas, and they would implement it. And they would tell us if it was realistic or not, or how they could do it. So a lot of credit is due to them and being able to put all this experience together. And then in terms of us purchase-wise and putting the build all together, it cost us about $12,000 so far to put it all together. And that, with us partnering with Reality Garage, is cheaper than what it should be.
By a large margin. Yeah. They're very generous.
Yes.
So one thing that's important to note, especially when we start talking about money, because as soon as you talk about a dollar figure and you're going to put a comma in there, people are like, oh, no. But the way that we built this experience is, the way Reality Garage built this experience. I'm taking no credit for this. This is all their anticipation and foresight. But they structured the learning mechanics and the general layouts first, and anything that comes after that basically gets textured on as an additional layer. So what we actually have now is a working skeleton of logistical object mechanics for teaching any task I say any task, most tasks that may be similar to this, that infrastructure now already exists. So in future projects and future endeavors, it'll be a matter of making the environment specific and rendering those objects as those final layers. But the overall skeleton, which is a major investment I think it was 250 coding hours that took place. That was a major piece of that. So in the future, the idea is that, of course, will be significantly less than the first time around.
Because you can think about the task of like picking up a beer and putting it in a box is the same task of picking up a tomato and putting it in a grocery bag. So,
Sure.
so you can easily manipulate that environment to change it to that instead of what we have currently. So since the mechanics are there, we can easily manipulate that environment to change it to a different task that is very similar.
Well, and we're having a question come in and kind of a conversation in the chat right now about the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality. And I'll let you guys define it, but I think virtual is creating a whole new environment, a totally immersive environment. Augmented reality is an overlay of digital components in a real world environment, correct?
Yes.
That actually was very well defined.
Yeah.
Well done, sir.
And with our experience, we did a little bit of both so that, we didn't want to immerse them into the environment fully because we didn't want them to feel like they were actually at the left-hand environment. We wanted to make it more like a 2D version, so the virtual reality version, so that they could have a little bit of separation between what is real and what's not real, but still have it look very similar so that when they do get to the work site, they can generalize those skills over because it does look similar, but not to the point where they feel like they're in that environment completely. We wanted to have some separation in there.
Well, I'm throwing, anybody else have any questions out there? Now's your chance to get them in. So the thing that you guys kind of said that I thought was pretty interesting is that you have a lot of the framework kind of already built, that building future tasks, modeling future tasks in either VR or AR is going to be significantly less build time from a coding perspective. Was that accurate? Did I understand that right? Yes.
For like certain tasks. So yeah, like we said, like the bottling aspect is very similar to like being at a grocery store in terms of like bagging stuff. And so, like Chris said, the skeleton is there. And so we can take that and put it into a different environment. So it should cost us less money in the future to have that stuff implemented.
And then one of the questions that was coming in that I might have missed is, are you guys doing the training in a training environment as well as in the real work environment, or kind of what's that look like? Do you start in the training environment, then transition to the real work environment with the headset, or how does that work?
So right now, just because right now we're doing the like virtual reality training in one of our day hab settings, so one of their classes, and then so they'll do the VR, and after that they'll do the task afterwards. So we have like empty left-hand bottles and stuff that looks exactly the same, and then they'll do that task. So we're trying to manipulate it so that it looks the same as well. We do have some individuals that have already gotten into the job site but haven't fully finished the VR experience, just because if there's a job available, someone moves into it quickly. That is a piece that we don't know how to fix in terms of our services. We want to support them in job development, and so if their team feels like they're ready, then we have to support that decision for them. So some of that stuff has kind of interfered with our data.
Have you guys been able to build this as a supported employment service?
Yeah, Harold, I saw that. You must be from one of those states where things like that exist. The short answer is no, at least not yet. Colorado is really, really behind the times when it comes to any type of, so Colorado is not a technology first state. I don't even know how to try to anticipate when that might take place. So our for right now, supported employment, no. The reality is for any of our vocational or even residential settings, that is assistive technology is really considered billable. For us,
Yeah.
at least right now. So when Colorado gets caught up to some of you pioneers like Ohio for sure, is Tennessee a technology first state, all you people out in Tennessee?
They are. Yeah, they're kind of one of the other states that's kind of leading the movement. Yeah.
Outstanding work, great job, you guys. We are dragging our heels, and by we, I mean the state of Colorado. Now we're working, as Imagine, we're working very hard with our lobbyists and I mean everyone that we know to try to get some traction, and we just haven't seen enough of it yet. So that may be something that we're looking for in the future, because we also recognize that that this is something that has a powerful potential, and not everyone has that kind of funding. In this case, and Jessica, I see a great question from you about how we got the funding. And we actually didn't use any grants for this particular project, but we rely very heavily on the outstanding members of our foundation, which is Imagine's fundraising arm. One of the reasons that we are able to do things like this, even though we are in Colorado, which is far from becoming a technology-first state, is we have a tremendous amount of local support from members of our Boulder and Broomfield counties. And we also received just an amazing amount of support from the foundation. And our foundation was actually the funding body for this project. That may be different in the future, but we're definitely very grateful for their contribution.
And we're hoping that by doing this virtual reality training, that we can present this to the state and show them that like why we need to be a technology first state in order to succeed in supporting individuals to get jobs and stuff like that as well.
Absolutely. If I may, I would love to run back to Star. You have a very interesting question about creating videos to help people with the headsets on. And the short answer right now is no. The longer, more interesting answer is the accessibility research team of Microsoft met up with us at the Coleman conference in October this year. And we started kind of bandying about the idea of trying to get a program in place to help work with people and just the generic baseline level, what is required to operate a headset. And, you know, common questions, like there are a lot of people who are immediately say, oh, right, well, I have a seizure disorder, therefore virtual reality is not for me, not ever. I myself actually did not know until far later than I should have that I absolutely can keep my glasses on and still wear a VR headset. So all these little questions that, I mean, we have so much anecdotal evidence around, but nothing really that's been collected, verified, or anything like that. I think it might be something that's going to be really powerful for people in the future so that we have a good unified baseline, and so people know what to expect and we know what to expect before trying to get into more diverse and complicated projects. So that's something that it may amount to nothing. It was an idea that we were bandying about. It may become a brilliant VR revolution, and I have no way to know what that's going to look like yet. But thanks for that question, Star.
So I really appreciate you guys doing this. It looks like there was obviously a lot of interest in this topic, and you guys are blazing new grounds with this. Reminds me of my days when we were trying to get remote support started across the country, a new concept, a new way of doing things that the regulatory and the funding environments may not have caught up yet, but that's what it takes is people like you guys doing new things to really change how we provide services and support people. So great job, amazing stuff. We actually, next week, well, not next week, in the future, I think it's a few weeks from now, we have another company coming on called Help Lightning that has created an augmented reality platform that actually just uses a smartphone that allows someone remotely to manipulate an augmented environment for a person with a disability through their phone. Basically, remote job coaching is what they're allowing to happen. So anybody that's on this one, you're really going to like that one. It's called Help Lightning. Just go to disabilitycocoon.com and you'll see that one if you aren't registered already. Chris, Megan, thank you very, very much. I want to get you back on to do a follow-up on this one, maybe middle of 2020, to see how the project is going and what are the ways you're taking it, because it's something that I think that needs to take off in other areas around the country. So great work.
Absolutely.
And for anybody that's on, go buy Left Hand beer tonight.
That's right.
Your choice, and support them and their efforts. So anything else you guys wanted to add? I don't want to cut you off, but
Oh no,
No,
I figured
yeah.
I forgot to advance my slideshow to the last slide. There, here I do have some resources if you guys want to stay. If you want to follow what's going on, what Imagine is doing, and of course, because Reality Garage has done such amazing work, I always want to give them a shout out. So their website is on here as well. Or if you're as interested as we are in what Oculus is planning on doing next with that hands-free controller thing in 2020, there's a link for you so that you can stay informed on that as well. We're all going to be standing around waiting with bated breath to see how that's going to look. But yeah, that was all that I had.
Yep.
Yep. My kids have the new Oculus on their Christmas list. So
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So do I.
well, thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it. Great job. Good work. And thank you all for everybody that joined. And
thank you all very much.
we will be talking to you guys soon. Get follow up on this schedule. So thank you again.